WNBA superstar Brittney Griner will be suspended without pay for 7 regular season games. Everyone thinks they know how the story ends. Brittney Griner said something ugly about Caitlin Clark, and the WNBA finally suspended her for it. Except that suspension never happened. Not that year, not for that reason, not ever confirmed by the league. But here's the twist nobody talks about. Griner was suspended 3 games. Just over a year later. For something that has absolutely nothing to do with Clark. 2 real events, over a year apart, quietly stitched into one story that never actually existed the way it's been told. Today we're pulling them apart. Piece by piece. To understand how this rumor got built, you have to go back to a single night. May 22, 2025. Indiana Fever on the road against the Atlanta Dream. Final score, 81-76 Fever. By this point, Caitlin Clark wasn't just a player anymore. She was a phenomenon. Attendance spiked wherever the Fever played. Broadcast numbers spiked with them. Arenas that used to run half full were suddenly selling out for a road game. And with that spotlight came something every rookie superstar eventually has to deal with. Opponents who play her harder physically than they play almost anyone else on the floor. That's not a conspiracy theory. It happened to Michael Jordan. It happens in every league. And it was happening to Clark in real time. That night, Atlanta's Brittney Griner was one of those opponents. Griner, by then an 11-year WNBA veteran, a former number 1 overall pick, a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, and one of the most dominant interior defenders the league has ever produced. The two teams battled through 4 quarters. And late in that 4th quarter, Griner picked up her 6th personal foul. Here's the key detail. The whistle wasn't blown because of anything involving Clark directly. The foul that fouled her out was called on a drive by Natasha Howard, Atlanta's own forward, not on Clark. She wasn't ejected for guarding Clark too aggressively. She fouled out defending her own teammate's man on a different possession entirely. Griner walked off toward the Atlanta bench visibly upset. Players vent. They mutter. It's one of the most human moments in sports. What made this particular moment different wasn't what happened on the court. It's what happened to the clip after it left the arena. The clip had no audio. Here's the detail that changes everything. There was no audio. The broadcast camera caught Griner's face and her mouth moving, but the broadcast microphones weren't positioned to pick up bench chatter. No official audio of what she said has ever surfaced. Not from the league, not from the broadcast, not from anyone. What you're left with then is lip reading. And if you've ever tried to read lips from a low-resolution TV clip played back on a phone screen, you already know how unreliable that process is. Context, camera angle, compression artifacts, all of it distorts what people think they see. Within hours, the clip was circulating on social media with 2 very different interpretations. One camp insisted Griner said something like, "trash," followed by a phrase that sounded like a reference to Clark's race. Screenshots were captioned as fact. Conservative commentator Riley Gaines was among the most visible voices pushing this interpretation, sharing the clip and directly connecting it to Griner's Russia prisoner exchange history, framing the alleged comment as proof of ingratitude. The other camp, including several sports journalists who slowed the footage down, argued the far more mundane explanation fit better, that what she actually said was something closer to whack call, a frustrated jab at the officiating crew. 2 readings, 1 clip, 0 audio. And an internet that split immediately along the lines it already wanted to believe. This is worth sitting with because it's not really a story about Brittney Griner at all. Not yet. It's a story about how a completely silent 10-second video can become a Rorschach test. People weren't reacting to what she said. They were reacting to what they already expected her to say, filtered through whatever they already believed about her, about the league, about Clark, about the entire cultural moment swirling around women's basketball in 2025. Think about how fast that clip moved compared to how slowly any actual verification could ever happen. Verifying a claim like this properly would mean tracking down enhanced broadcast audio, corroborating with people courtside, waiting for a response from the player herself. None of that fits inside the window when a clip is at its most viral, the first few hours. By the time any careful reporting caught up, the caption had already done its job. So what does the woman at the center of all this say happened? This part, at least, we don't have to guess about because she was asked directly, on the record, weeks later. On June 15th, roughly 3 weeks after the incident, a reporter caught up with Griner and asked her point-blank about the viral clip. Her answer wasn't a scripted PR statement. She said she remembered fouling out. She remembered being frustrated about the specific call on Howard driving to the basket. But when it came to the exact words she used walking to the bench, she said she genuinely couldn't recall them. 3 weeks removed from a split-second reaction in the heat of a close game. The reporter offered to show her the clip. Her response was that it wouldn't help. She still wouldn't be able to tell from watching it because there was no sound. Which, if you think about it, is a pretty reasonable answer. Then came the more pointed question. Had she made a comment referencing race? Her answer was direct and unambiguous. No. She said there was no place for that kind of language in the league. And that it wasn't something she would say. Now, here's where it's important to be honest. A denial isn't forensic proof. Athletes deny things all the time. Sometimes truthfully, sometimes not. What we can say with actual confidence is this. There is no verified audio, confirmed record of Griner using a racial slur. What exists is a disputed lip-reading interpretation, a competing and more mundane interpretation, and a direct on-the-record denial from the player herself. This is where the story takes its strangest turn. Because at some point, a detail got added that never actually happened. Videos began circulating claiming the WNBA had suspended Brittney Griner over the incident. Some claimed it was a multi-game ban. Others claimed indefinite suspension. Here's the plain fact. None of that occurred. Not in the days after, not in the weeks after, not at any point tied to this specific moment. There is no league statement, no fine, no press release, no disciplinary record connecting any WNBA suspension to the May 22nd game. If you search for it, you'll find outlets like Snopes explicitly debunking these suspension claims. That's worth pausing on because it flips the usual assumption. Normally, we assume something spreads because there's at least a kernel of truth buried somewhere. Here, the rumor wasn't an exaggerated version of something real. It was invented in full, then treated online with the same confidence as a confirmed league statement. Why does this matter? Because the WNBA had launched a public campaign that season called No Space for Hate. Critics who believed the slur claim pointed to the league's silence as proof of hypocrisy. Evidence, they argued, that the campaign was hollow marketing that quietly protected a star player. It's an easy argument to make. But you can't credibly accuse a league of covering up a suspension that every available record shows was never issued in the first place. Now here's the part that almost nobody mentions because it complicates the narrative instead of confirming it. Brittney Griner was in fact suspended by the WNBA. Just not for this. Not for anything close to this. More than a year after the May 2025 fallout, in June of 2026, the league suspended Griner for 3 games following a physical altercation during a game between Dallas and Phoenix. According to league and AP reporting, the incident involved Griner throwing punches and pushing another Dallas player in the face with an open hand. 4 other players were disciplined alongside her, including players from both teams. Read that again. Different season. Different opponent, Dallas, not Indiana. Different arena. A physical fight, not a verbal comment. And critically, by this point, Griner was no longer even with the Atlanta Dream. She had returned to the Phoenix Mercury. There is no reasonable reading of the record that connects this suspension to Caitlin Clark, to the May 2025 clip, or to any racial comment. 5 players, 2 teams, a scuffle in the paint. That's the entire story. No slur, no Clark, no fever, no Atlanta. And yet, if you were scrolling past a video that opened with the May 2025 clip, then cut to the WNBA finally suspended her, most viewers would have no reason to question the connection. The emotional logic feels satisfying. That's exactly what makes this kind of splice so effective. It doesn't ask you to believe anything wild. It just asks you not to check the dates. This is worth remembering about a much older piece of context that keeps getting dragged into this same story. Griner's 2022 detention in Russia and her release in a prisoner exchange. That's real documented history. She was held for roughly 10 months and released in December 2022. But it happened nearly 3 years before the Clark fallout, involves entirely different facts, and has no factual connection to a basketball game in Atlanta in May 2025. When commentators invoke it in the same breath as the slur allegation, implying ingratitude, implying a pattern, they're not adding context. They're adding emotional weight to a claim that still has no audio, no confirmation, and no league action behind it. That's the anatomy of how a manufactured story gets built. One real clip nobody can fully verify. One real historical fact from years earlier that has nothing to do with it. And one real disciplinary action from over a year later that also has nothing to do with it. All narrated together as if they're one continuous causal chain. They're not. They just feel like they are if you're not paying close attention. So, there it is. Not a cover-up, not delayed justice. Just two unrelated events wearing the headline. A frustrated foul-out with no audio to confirm anything. And a real suspension over a year later for a fight that had nothing to do with Clark, Reese, or Atlanta at all. The rumor felt satisfying because it wrapped up clean. The truth doesn't wrap up clean. It just happens to be true. Next time a story feels too perfectly timed, that's your cue to slow down, not share. That's the record. Not the rumor. If that's what you come here for, you know what to do. Subscribe to Hoops Uncovered.